Ei! Silêncio! Câmera! Ação!
Well, let's start this. Thank you, Simon, for doing this, and it's a pleasure to have you here on my podcast. It's not in Portuguese; it will be in English.
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, thank you for the invitation, and thank you for tolerating my English and my lack of Portuguese. I can speak a little bit of German and a tiny bit of Chinese, but yeah, it has to be in English, I'm afraid.
Yes, but at least you can say obrigado.
Yeah, I guess so.
Thank you. And okay, so the reason we are here talking, it's because you have a podcast called Real Riders. One of the things. The other thing is that you made part of an adventure motorcycle film fest, and I'm interested also to know how it went. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is about your podcast. How did you start it? How did the thing is starting to grow and end it on the podcast production?
Okay, so the podcast started in 2023. And in December, I think December 2023 is when I published the first episode. But I had been thinking about the podcast maybe for 6 months before I published an episode. I live in Germany, and I came to Germany in August 2020, right in the middle of the COVID pandemic. Before that, I had worked in many places in Asia in telecommunications, long sort of work history in telecommunications. But one of the jobs I had before I went to university, so just straight out of school, is I worked in radio for the public broadcaster in New Zealand, Radio New Zealand. And even though I did that job only for 2 years and then part-time when I was at university, I really loved that job. Like it was just great. I mean, I could have kept doing that my whole life, but it didn't pay very well, and that was a bit of a concern. But I loved the job. I've never lost my love of radio and audio, which is kind of funny for someone who makes a podcast about films, but audio is definitely kind of my first love. And I started in 2021, I started voluntarily producing a podcast here in Germany in English with a couple of British guys who live in Bavaria. I don't live in Bavaria. I'd never met them, but I just offered to produce their podcast, which was a weekly podcast talking about what life is like for expats or immigrants, I think is probably the correct word, immigrants who've come to live in Germany. And it was a lot of fun. And we did that actually until late last year is when we stopped it. But that opportunity allowed me to sort of refresh my skills in terms of audio production and podcast production. And so I did that. And then at the same time, I actually picked up a bit of working as a podcast producer. And so I now describe myself as a freelance podcast producer because I do work part-time as a podcast producer. But all along, at the same time, I was wanting to do something myself end to end in terms of creating a podcast. And this coincided with my interest in getting a motorcycle here in Germany, which I finally did in, I think it was May or early June of 2021. And up until that time, I'd sort of spent 6 months watching a lot of YouTube videos about motorcycles, motorcycle reviews, and then sort of other motorcycle films. And I realized that there were some films that I really liked, and some films that I found very boring or videos that I found boring. And I was kind of interested to work out what my taste was, what was driving my taste, why I liked some things and I didn't find other things so interesting. I've done a little bit of film study at university, but not very much. But I've always been interested in good quality television and good quality films. So I first of all thought, okay, I don't want to be the person behind the microphone. I want to be the producer. I want to make this, but I don't really want to be the host of the podcast because I've never done that. And it's sort of not I don't think it's my skill set, shall we say. But after 6 months of thinking about this idea, I thought, I'm never going to find someone who's going to be as interested in this very niche topic of motorcycles and filmmaking, because it is, I think, quite a niche topic. No one's going to want to be the host for my podcast. No one's going to want to do it free of charge because my podcast is a commercial free, sponsorship free. It's a purely passion project podcast. So I realized that I had to do the hosting myself. I had to be the host of the podcast. And initially I thought, okay, I'll just write some questions. I'll ask the same questions to my guests and I won't use my voice very much at all. I'll just try and stay out of it. And hopefully that will work as a concept. When I recorded my first interview, I had a script and I followed that script and I asked my questions and I talked a little bit and I followed that model for, say, the first 5 or 6 episodes. And then I realized that each episode was starting to sound the same, just asking the same questions, regardless of who the guest was. And I thought I came to the realization that I'm actually going to have to put a little bit of my personality, what little personality I have, into the podcast. And I'm still, I would say I'm still developing my skill as a host, as an interviewer, et cetera, that's an ongoing skill. It's not something I'm naturally good at.
We don't stop learning.
Exactly. And actually, that was kind of the appeal about doing the end-to-end project myself, is to really push myself to try and create something that was good, something that I thought sounded good. So that's how it got started. And very early on, I got quite a lot of success at getting some reasonably prominent people, at least on YouTube, initially on YouTube.
Yes.
And the great thing I found is that you talk to one guest and they know all these other people and they'll say, oh yeah, I'll help you get connected to this person, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And that happened so many times that within that first year, I was able to get guests, and my hit rate, and by that I mean that the number of people I approached and asked if they wanted to come on the podcast, most of them came back and said, yes, sure, which was really satisfying, particularly because, again, I was going after maybe not the biggest names in YouTube, but people who I think are admired within the YouTube motorcycle filmmaking sort of niche. Then I decided, okay, if I'm serious about this, I better go to the Toronto Motorcycle Film Festival.
Yeah, for
and I reached out to the director, Caius, there, and I arranged to interview him when I was there. And I met a few other people, plus he also connected me to other potential guests, future guests. And so, coming out of that festival, I think I did 5 or 6 interviews just with directors whose films were shown there. And so really, moving into 2024, I guess it would have been moving into 2025, I was able to produce an episode every 2 weeks. I just was getting connections to people. Also in 2024, I made a connection with the Trail and Adventure Motorbike podcast in the UK, which is a very popular podcast in the UK. And we started comparing sort of notes about how we go about doing our interviews, our editing, sound processing, things like that. And through that relationship, I ended up going and giving a couple of talks at the Lightweight Adventure Festival, which was a festival of about 500 motorcycle enthusiasts, typically ADV riders, I think it would be fair to say. And that was in the Peak District of the UK in 2024. And it's kind of relevant I mention that because we were all set to do that again in 2025 and it got cancelled. And before it got cancelled, Clive from the Trail and Adventure Motorbike podcast and we were planning to run some sort of film festival, put some films on and maybe give some talks, interview some directors at the Lightweight Adventure Festival in 2025, the one that was cancelled. And when it got cancelled, we thought, why don't we just put our own film festival on?
Yeah.
And so that's what we basically spent most of last year preparing to do. And then we ran it on the 28th of February, just a few weeks back as we record this, at a theatre in a place called Kendal, which is in the Lake District of the UK, so sort of northwest part of the UK, northwest from Manchester. So the funny thing about that festival was, I think my fourth guest was a guy called Nick Jacobs. Now, Nick Jacobs is known as Project Biker on YouTube and on Instagram. I'd say he's a good friend now, just through, I've interviewed him a couple of times. I really like what he does. I think he's and I enjoy interviewing him. I think we talk every 2 weeks, and when we talk for an hour. When I first talked to him, and this was actually one of the joys I discovered through doing the podcast interviews, is that as soon as the recording stops, I typically would talk another 60 minutes, 90 minutes with my guests, and including some really big, Hollywood sort of level directors, and I'm sort of pretending I know what I'm talking about, but lovely people, and just having these really interesting conversations once the recording stops. But when I first spoke to Nick, he said, "Oh, I've got all these ideas, all these things I want to do, and maybe put on a film festival." And I wasn't very keen, or I was very skeptical that we would be able to run a motorcycle film festival in the UK. And at that time, there hadn't been one for quite a few years. Austin Vince, who's a very famous name in the motorcycling community and filmmaking community in the UK, he had run a film festival, a motorcycling film festival for something like, or maybe it was actually an adventure film festival for something like 10 years. And I'd understood that he'd struggled with that financially. It had been quite, he hadn't made any money out of it. It had been quite difficult. And I think that was one of the reasons why I was not so enthusiastic about, doing the film festival. But, 2 years later, there I was partnering with the Trail and Adventure Motorbike podcast, or Clive, my co-director, and we took a fairly conservative and safe approach to the festival, in that we used the venue, which is called the Brewery Arts Centre in Kendal. We used that venue. They handled all the ticketing. It's about 240 seats. They handled all the ticketing. They didn't need any money up front, which was nice.
Yeah.
And they took care of obviously all the projection equipment. So we didn't have to hire any equipment. We didn't have to deal with the ticketing. We just basically had to find the films and find an audience. And very early on, the audience, was there. We could see that, oh, yeah, this is looking pretty
Yeah.
good. And we ended up selling out, I think before Christmas or something like that. So 2 months before the festival was actually held, it was completely sold out. And also by that time, we knew that we had enough films because 52 films had been submitted. And when we sat down with our judging panel early on, I said, look, I don't know what's going to happen, but my reference from interviewing Caius at the Toronto Motorcycle Film Festival, he said they typically get between 30 and 60 films a year. So I thought, okay, well, we're small. Plus, we've also restricted ourselves to the theme of adventure motorcycle films. And that was something that initially I was not keen on. I wanted a broader, sort of broader types of films. Because if you look at something like Toronto or Lisbon, the films there are different types of films. They're not just adventure films, right?
Yeah. There's
But
place for everybody.
yeah. But before we ran our festival, the London Motorcycle Film Festival started. And they were also talking, and that's sort of an offshoot of the Dubai Motorcycle Film Festival. And they were talking about even doing something in Manchester. And at that point, I said to Clive, I said, oh, actually, you know what? I'm comfortable if we just go for adventure motorcycles. So we'll specialize into the ADV, or not actually ADV, because it wasn't just ADV motorcycles, but films that were about an adventure. There has to be an adventure component to the film. And I said, I'm now comfortable with that because we'll specialize and we'll make a name for ourselves. We'll try to make our name for ourselves as an adventure motorcycle film festival. So we did that, and I had no idea if anyone would submit films. And in the end, we got 52 films in. So right smack in the middle of that, or more than actually the middle of that 30 to 60 range that Toronto typically gets. So that was really pleasing. I do wonder, I'm intrigued what will happen next time, whether we will get that many. There'll be some people who will probably go, oh, I submitted a film last time.
I think you will have the double.
Well,
Count with
maybe.
the double.
Maybe,
Sure.
because, what was one of the nice things about the festival was that, because what we did was we held we had a short award, so for films less than 30 minutes long, and then we had award for the best feature, which was over 30 minutes, and best film, which is sort of overall best film for the festival. We may change that next year. I'm not sure yet. But we also had something called a People's Choice Award film.
That's good.
And what was really lovely about the People's Choice Award was that the director who won it, is also a former guest of mine, Danny Lewell, a film called Uganda by Motorcycle, which was actually chosen also for Toronto in 2025, which was lovely. He won it, and Nick Jacobs, the guy, Project Biker, who I was talking about earlier, his film West of Santander, that placed second. So in fact, even though there were some massive big budget productions, the Drixton and Yalla Habibi and other big name films in that we put on, it was actually two local guys and I'm not surprised, because Danny's film really clicked with a lot of people. It got a lot of laughs, in the theatre, and people also really, I think, appreciated Nick's approach to his film. Very different films, but the crowd loved them, and that was personally very satisfying to me, because I liked the way I like those films, and it was like, it's nice that other people like them as well. That the crowd liked those films. It was very satisfying.
when you exhibit a film, it's like a community experience, and that's very how you say it, grandioso. I don't know. It's very big because the community experience, they feel the same at the same time in the same moment, and they laugh at the same time. That's unique. There's nothing can overpass like that.
Exactly, and that was the thing that I was really interested to see what the reaction of the directors who were with us, what their what their reaction was sitting in the theater. Because, you might have a 40-inch television and amazing sound system at home, but you
Yeah.
don't have the audience sitting with you, right?
And also the director to talk about the film.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
exactly.
a little bit,
Yeah, it's special.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really good.
So that's how those sort of two things actually connect. The fact that well, multiple things connect. Starting a podcast, and through podcasting, the great thing about podcasting, and this is how you and I met, is that we have a love of podcasting, and rather than just sit in our corners, we reach out to each other and go, "Hey, do you want to talk about blah blah blah?" And we talk about this, and this is how I formed a relationship with the Trail and Adventure Motorcycle podcast in the UK. They are now my close friends. I stayed with Clive and his family 2 weekends ago in Kendal, where we held the festival. Last summer, we were at this social event. I've got another event to go to, at least one other social event, sort of motorcycling, camping event. So, yeah, it's all stemmed for me from podcasting, and then through talking to people in what I hope is an honest and genuine way, forming these relationships through these discussions, finding other guests, being invited onto podcasts. This is now the third invitation I've had this year to be on a podcast to talk about what I do. It's and the great thing about all of this is I'm not trying to make any money out of as I said earlier, my podcast is not a commercial podcast. I don't really look at the numbers. I'm a small podcast, and I have a small loyal audience, but I get to run a film festival. And can I, if you told me in 2023 in December, when I published my first episode, that in early 2026 you will have had almost 50 episodes, you've talked to this broad range of directors in all sorts of sort of subgenres, vloggers, Instagram influencers, or content creators, is probably a better word, very serious film directors, from Hollywood, all of these different people, and get to run, we've just run a successful film festival that no one, well, okay, we've asked for feedback, and we've had some feedback, but the feedback has been very positive. I can tell you what the negative feedback is, and actually it's a real challenge for us. But to have done all these things just off starting a small podcast, literally in my basement. I am literally in my basement now. This is where I make the magic.
Cave.
It is a man cave, exactly. It's amazing what you can do by just putting your fear aside.
Yeah. That's
being prepared to do that growth, which you mentioned
and
earlier, like to challenge myself.
Learning about every step of the way.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Seeing as I mentioned it, I will follow up. So the only negative feedback we've had, and we knew it already, is that of the films that we showed, women motorcyclists were underrepresented.
Mm-hmm.
We showed 12 films, 2 by women directors, which we were very happy about. But in general, it's really difficult to find films that are actually focused on or have women as the main sort of protagonists. in this genre. And so one of our big challenges for the next festival is to try and find not just women directors, but actually women characters on as the
Maybe I have
subject.
to submit my film again.
Yeah, okay. I was
Of Elizabeth Jacinto, the Portuguese woman that won the Dakar in 2001.
Exactly, and I've got I'm very much aware that that would have helped our our representation on
yeah.
on the
But
on the night.
I find a language a very how you say an obstacle. Language is an obstacle because, for instance, with Two Wheels and a Crank Camera, the film with Marina Cianferroni, it's in Italian, and she speaks Italian. She is Italian, and the film has a lot. It has one winning and one honorable mention in Italy, but he never went to. I submitted to Toronto. I submitted to Portland, and nothing, and then on Italy, because the film is in Italian, of course, it has a lot of reception, right? So I think the language it is an obstacle. It is an obstacle, and also the way you film, because European filmmaking is completely different than American filmmaking. There's this.
Actually, I would say filmmaking in different parts of Europe is quite different. So tastes. This is what I've noticed.
Yeah,
Nordic or Scandinavian tastes
completely different.
Completely different. British or UK taste or films. Southern Europe, Italy, Spain, Portugal. You can see the different styles. But going back to what you say about language, I think, I can only talk for me personally, and we did have we had quite a large judging panel, I think 12 judges, which I think is quite large.
Oh, that's very hard to organize.
we got, we did it. We made it.
2 is okay, 3 is a crowd, 12, it's full.
Yeah. So I think we could probably have a whole podcast discussion about whether that's a good idea or not. But anyway, what I was going to say is I tend to agree about language, because for a film like your film, like for me, I'm concentrating so hard on the subtitles because I want to read the subtitles. I don't want to miss a single thing. That I'm almost reading the film. I'm not watching the film.
Yeah. But because you didn't started seeing films with subtitles like Portuguese people have for, I don't know, since I was born, I see films with subtitles.
Yeah.
When the first time I went to America, I was looking down, talking in English to a person. I was looking down to see the subtitles. What is this guy just said? Because that's the we are always, since childhood, seeing films with subtitles.
Yeah, which
it's different than Spain and Italy, because they don't see with subtitles. They dubbed everything.
Yeah, so
Marina was just sad because she wanted to see a film in Spain with the original sound, but she could not.
Yeah.
Everything is dubbed.
Okay, so it's kind of funny. I actually now, even when I'm watching something in English, I quite often have the subtitles on, but that's more to do with my loss of hearing, I think, more than anything else. But I remember the first time I went to Finland.
Yeah.
And of course, Finland has 2 official languages. And I think I went to see The Thin Red Line in Finland, which I think is quite a powerful film.
It is.
And the problem with seeing films in Finland is also a small country. and it's the smaller countries that tend to show things in the original language and subtitled, like in Portugal. Because they have two official languages, half the screen is taken up with text because everything's in Swedish and everything's in Finnish. So,
Whoa.
as cinematographers probably look at it and go, oh, well, you're ruining my picture, all the text everywhere. Yeah.
Two
But
language at the same time in the same
yeah,
subtitle.
yeah.
I never
By
heard
law.
about it. This is the first time I hear this. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit crazy,
Okay.
but it's like it means that they have pretty good handle on English, which is very useful.
Mhm.
Germany used to be really bad. I think television, everything is in dubbed in German. There's still a lot of dubbing here, but at least you can see films in the cinema in the original language in Germany now, which
Yeah.
I don't think was always the case. And of course, I'm not demanding that happens. I'm a visitor here. I'm a guest. It's not my culture. It's not my language. I don't expect anything, but it's kind of nice to hear something in your own language. But coming back to your film, I think that was my. It's not why I marked it down, but from an experience point of view, I'm reading your film. I'm not watching and listening to it,
Yeah.
and I think that takes something away from the film.
Yeah, for sure.
The experience.
The attention to the image, the attention to the emotion of the character, the attention to, I don't know, the story itself. So there's a lot of things, because also you're not used to, right? So other countries are used to subtitles, right? So
Yeah.
it's different. But I understand sometimes, as a filmmaker, studier, we have to see the film without subtitles to understand exactly. We have to see the film like the position of the cinematographer. We have to see the film. On when I see a film and I'm concentrating with sound, I put the image darker, so I only hear the sound of the film, and then you focus just on that. So there's a book called The Art of Watching Films in the USA, and it's a very I have that book, and I can send it to you. It's a very wonderful book because you focus on each part of the film to understand the whole. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's, as you said, a language is an obstacle, and then you're just trying to see the film, to understand the film, and then you're just reading the subtitle. You just what are the reaction when she said this?
Yeah.
Right? It's completely, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's natural. It's like that.
Yeah.
Maybe an international adventure motorcycle film fest. No, I'm just kidding. No problem.
Yeah.
But now you've learned a lot since all this voyage, since all this experience. And what do you want to make a film?
I have said repeatedly, quite recently on the podcast, or when I've been interviewed like this, I have said, yeah, deep down, I am actually sort of a frustrated filmmaker. I've been making home videos for years, but we lived in China around the turn of the century. So I went there in 1998, and we left about 2003, 2004. And when we were there, I had the opportunity to go into quite a remote part of China with a couple of colleagues, or one colleague who was a Danish guy and his friend who was Danish. And we went away for like 7 days, where we flew to this place sort of in the southwest of China, which is quite a poor state, not a particularly wealthy state, famous for a lot of ethnic minorities. So within mainland China, you have the dominant minority, which is the Han people. But in this place, there were several different minorities, ethnic minorities, and they were photographers. They wanted to take pictures of these people, where these people lived, how they lived, and I went along, and I had a Canon XLS1 mini DV. The
Good.
camera,
It's good.
lovely glass on it. You know, the
Yeah.
lens was lovely. Unfortunately, I don't have that camera anymore, but it was a very cool looking camera as well. You know,
Yeah.
it was the red and the white and the black. It was a
Oh.
very cool looking camera. And I made this sort of documentary kind of film, just a personal project. And I recently rewatched it, and actually, it's not too bad. What we did is we did all these shots, and then when we got back to Beijing, which is where we lived, I sort of set up some lights and interviewed them. Now, the interview part to camera looks pretty amateur, but actually the footage that I caught when we were on the trip is actually pretty good. I think it's all right. And we saw amazing things, and we caught some footage that was great. And I really didn't do anything after that, but I kept making sort of home videos with the family. So when we've got a couple of sons, and we were living in Singapore, and we'd go on a family holiday either somewhere in Asia, or we did a couple of trips to the United States as well. And I'd always I'd always have cameras with me, and I'd always shoot something, and I'd always make some sort of video with it. But I never really pushed myself beyond that. Certainly not since making that film in China. And I'm kind of itching to do it now. I've tried to do some motorcycle style, but I've realized that I'm not particularly, I don't want to do vlogging. I'm not interested in that. I'm more interested in things, topics, themes. I'm actually more interested in pointing the camera at someone else rather than myself.
For sure.
And this is something that I like to challenge my guests, particularly those guests who I get on quite well with. If they've done a lot of films where they are the subject of their filmmaking, increasingly I like to challenge them and say, hey, have you thought about pointing the camera at someone else? And what does that mean for your process? And you can tell, I can see that they're quite resistant to it, because I think to start pointing the camera at someone else, it's quite a big leap in terms of.
It's the same day pointing the camera to myself. It's kind of no.
I mean, if you're the subject of your film, you don't have to coordinate with anyone else. You're just there. You can do it when it suits you, etc., etc. When you start involving other people, that's a big step up, and I think there's quite a bit of resistance from those solo filmmakers to do that because of the additional work that's required.
Isn't it because they are working on producing content, and just how you say, the content producing is like a vlog, right? It's like this is my life. This is what I feel. This is what I visit. This is what I looking for, and it's self-centered, because it's all social media are in that way. They live for the real stuff that the person is living, no?
Yeah.
But the older guys like me, we used to see. We lived before a lot before the social network and the social everything. So we are used to watch other people trying to tell their own stories, try to be curious about what other people are saying, and I think most of the persons that we look in the YouTube and the Instagram and also sometimes in the cinema, some films are about themselves having their own experience, which is good. I guess it's not different than the other thing, but I think it's driven from the social environment that brought out in 2000 something, 7, 8, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, when did YouTube start? Was it? I think
think
even earlier than that.
earlier,
Maybe.
2003, 2000 and something.
Yeah, I think so, something like that. Yeah, I mean, I understand and largely agree with what you're saying. I personally am interested in those filmmakers. I'm tend to be interested in really small filmmakers who have maybe initially thought that they want to do the YouTube game, try to play
Yeah.
the algorithm game, try and become big and famous. Realize that actually that's a lot of work and not particularly well, it's certainly people who think they can make money out of it. No, there are certain things you can do on YouTube to get subscribers, to
Some
get
of them
views.
win. Some of them
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah.
Not all, but some of them get there.
But and you know, I do talk to content creators as well because I'm interested in their struggles and their methods and their processes. But there are definitely a lot of filmmakers now, more and more, who've realized that they just want to, particularly in motorcycling, you know, they don't want to ruin the ride too much. So they want to enjoy the ride. They want to capture a memory of the ride. And they maybe, as time goes on, they start to take more sophisticated approaches to storytelling, visual storytelling, things like this, challenge themselves to actually make something that is not simply about generating content for the sake of generating content.
There is an Emmy Award for people who do their own films. There was a motorcycle guy who won it. I don't remember his name. He had a T700 all around the world, and the film is actually very good. But it's all made by himself, and he won that category on the Emmy a few years ago. So because it's kind of the Emmy Awards notice that are a lot of people doing those kind of works and with a lot of effort and with a lot of care and strength. So they had an Emmy Award just for that. So the people who are working as a producer, as a director, as everything, sound designer, as everything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I say, when you're starting out, when you're just starting to play in this area of making films, and we're talking about a lot of amateur people who they haven't been to university, they haven't worked in the industry, they have just seen other people do it, and of course,
Christopher Nolan didn't went to filmmaking school, so
yeah. And the thing is that you can teach yourself the technical stuff by watching YouTube now. Cameras
and try if you just do it.
Exactly. This is, you know, so many of the people I've talked to who've become expert, they say, get out there, do it, learn, practice, be critical of what you're doing, analyze what you're doing wrong, figure out how to do it correctly, become really efficient. I mean, one of the big things I hear all the time from the professionals, the ones who really make a living out of filmmaking, is they're very efficient with their capture. They have shot lists. And these amateur guys who do more motorcycling than filmmaking maybe go on an ACT ride with these guys and they go, oh, I was watching what, the hired professional videographer was doing. And the week before, he'd been on the trail, he'd checked where he was going to take his shot. He had his shot list. He was all ready to go. And he didn't capture anything more than what he needed for the film that he was going to make. And then you compare that to these people who start their vlogging and the camera's running all day, and they come home or from a trip of several days and they've filmed every single minute of that trip, and they've just got terabytes of data, and they spend weeks trying to figure out how to make a story out of this. It's
Imagine.
very inefficient,
Yeah,
quite
inefficient
painful.
and painful. Yes, that's what I was wanted.
Yeah.
The correct word, painful.
Yeah.
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 For
So,
sure.
yeah, there are people out there who are making content for the sake of content, but I'm always interested in finding the people who are doing it for the love, often who've taught themselves, or if they have had some training or gone to university or whatever, they're still making films for the pure joy and pleasure of it.
Yeah, I think you have a very good opportunity here. Do you know International Motorcycle Journal?
No, I
International.
don't.
It's a journal, a scientific journal,
Okay.
motorcycle studies, International Journal of Motorcycle Study, IJMS.
Okay.
So and so there's this, it's a scientific journal that receives and look at the motorcycle world. So it's an amazing opportunity. So your own search on that, you can make a paper and submit it to them.
Funny you should say that.
Because the whole thing, you have testimonies, you have a lot, 52 persons you already interviewed.
I published 46 episodes.
There's
47
a lot of
will come out next week.
You can make a paper about all of that experience and publish it in a scientific journal. Amazing.
Well, you know what? Because so I've got this idea. I mean, I talked to quite a few vloggers, not because I'm particularly interested in vlogging as a style myself, but I'm kind of fascinated in it as a subculture.
Yeah, it is.
Because it is a real subculture, and it's not just old men, though there are a lot of old men who do it.
Yeah.
But obviously everyone has heard of Itchy Boots, and
Yes.
and obviously her audience is beyond motorcycling.
Beyond.
I haven't myself watched Itchy Boots for a long time, but it's not just old men. But there is this whole subculture of vlogging, and I actually think, okay, I shouldn't give my idea away on air. I don't know how big your audience is, but I've basically been talking. I probably. I think I know it would be a good topic for a documentary, and let's just say I've started to make movement in that area. And
I think so.
again, it's not because I'm interested necessarily in the style, but I'm very interested in the motivation. You know, why would you do this? Why would you ruin a motorcycle ride by filming yourself talking on your, why do you have to, what's actually, what are these people who are doing the vlogging?
Well, there's
why?
there's the Zach Kortz, for instance. He has from Revzilla, right?
Yeah.
And he has a program. So he does a vlog called driving driving to work or something like that. And he tests for half an hour, 45 minutes, the motorcycle while he's riding to work. And people are, I always see that he passes the different bikes on the same roads. So, and he talks about in each part of the road, a specific part of that bike. He challenged himself to not put his feet on the ground while he has the stop sign, or he has the lovers road where he talks about pillions and comfort pillions, and that's vlogging, right? That's vlogging, and
Yeah.
at the same time he's just telling us how this motorcycle behaves on the highway, you know, how this motorcycle, even if it is a road bike, goes to a dirt path, you know. So, and you're used to it. That's kind of, I don't know the amount of these episodes that he has, but it's really a lot.
So this is okay. So one of the things that I've noticed is that there are a lot of vloggers, mainly in the UK, but not all. They're also in Western Europe as well. And they typically have maybe like 1,000 subscribers, and they'll do maybe some bike reviews because they'll get the adrenaline buzz. If you do a review of some equipment, you always get a lot of views. So there's always that, it's like a drug, or it's like, oh, if I do a bike review, or if I do some review of some equipment, that people will watch that video on YouTube. But what I've noticed is that a lot of the older male vloggers want to get on their bike and talk about what they're thinking about. And coming back to your whole idea about writing a paper, not so long ago, I actually did a Google search to see if anyone had done like a sociological study of this subculture of moto vloggers, particularly these smaller ones who they're talking about motorcycles, or they pretend they talk about motorcycles, but often, I mean, I've seen guys, people I know who go out and ride, and they talk about their breakdown in their relationship and the fact that they're having problems with their friends and stuff like this. It's like, that to me is interesting.
It's a confessionary.
Yeah, you could say that. And so this is what I want to sort of dig into, because it may not be sexy for a lot of motorcyclists, but it is a real genuine subculture of these people doing this. And you know, subcultures are always interesting, always interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so the whole idea about writing a paper has not passed me by, because I thought, yeah, there's something going on here. And like you say, I've had a lot of access and talked to a lot of different people, and the vast majority of them have been self-taught. Even if they're professional now, they taught themselves. I've also talked to real professionals and people who did study. You know, Haley Watson, brilliant. You know, went to university, studied filmmaking, worked as a camera operator, is now a director, blah, 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 things like that. So I'd like to think that I'm able to talk to a wide range of people in different roles and different experiences. Yeah, that's a challenge for me, for sure.
Yeah. I know a YouTube channel that he just records sounds of the motorcycle.
I bet I know which one.
Yeah, it's a German guy or Austrian.
Austrian guy, yeah.
Austrian guy. It's amazing. Kind of just listen to that, and he drives very well. So just to listen that motorcycle roaring, it's amazing. It's amazing. Sometimes I think also another film would be great is I spend hours watching films of restoration motorcycles.
Okay.
It's amazing. Little boat here, little boat there, little boat there, cleaning this, cleaning that, and then the bike is beautiful, and you know, sometimes I think that it's also should be considered like a motorcycle film, right? Because there's the bike and there's the rider. You can focus on mixing them or separated them, you know. And it's kind of interesting to see.
Yeah. And I have interviewed people who've made films like that. Often the person I've interviewed, the director, has not been a big motorcyclist, but they've seen the art and the passion in these people. You know, for me, I have worked out for me, I don't want to sit all day in my garage wrenching or spannering, you know. I'm I like motorcycles for riding. Riding is the most important thing for me. But I fully understand those people who are passionate about the restoration or just the maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. And that's obviously there are a lot of people really serious about that.
Yeah.
Their love for the bikes. But yeah, I want to get out and ride. And I
Yeah, for sure.
I want it to be reliable as well. Yeah.
Well, just 1 hour almost of talking. I think we get all the points. We just talk about everything, and yeah, let's the paper. We could do the paper. That would be amazing. I think they have the submission open right now, so I don't know when it ends, but well, maybe sometimes they just want the abstract.
Oh yeah.
And then when the conference is heading, then you need to deliver the paper itself.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, so you can do that.
That would be
Yeah, just look at
that
it.
would be cool.
International Journal of Motorcycle Studies. It's American publication, an American publication. They had 2 years or 3 years ago. They had they went to England to Nottingham University, and
Oh yeah.
we were invited to show our two wheels and a crank camera there.
Oh, okay.
We didn't went because it was too expensive, but the film went, and we had a representation there to talk about the film. So
Lovely.
yeah. So it's also there's an interview, or Caius also had an article there.
Oh, okay.
The director of
Toronto.
Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Nice.
yes, nice, very good. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. Let's do this more often. I love this.
Yeah, I mean,
I saw real riders, and I thought, wow, I have to meet this guy because I'm just doing this in Portuguese.
yeah.
Nobody will listen, but well, let's just make a new friend. Let's just make someone that are interested in the same subject that I am. I love motorcycle films. I also started like you watching motorcycle channels, YouTube channels, and everything. And then I found Lisbon Motorcycle Film Fest in the 7th edition. So this year it'll be the 10th edition, and I think you are going there, right?
Not think. I definitely am. I have my flights.
Please, let's.
I'm coming. The flight's booked. The
We're
accommodations.
going to have fun. We're going to have fun.
Yeah, I'll be
you're
there.
going to eat a lot of pastel de nata.
If you say so.
It's a sweet. It's a Portuguese sweet, very good, with cinnamon above. It's delicious.
Yeah.
And we talk about motorcycles, and I'll introduce you to all the organization of Lisbon Motorcycle Film Fest. We can organize some interviews there as well. So we are going to have some fun.
Excellent. I'll bring some recording equipment with me.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to come on and talk this stuff with you, and looking forward to seeing you in Lisbon.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be there.